Hello, MCU fans. Today we're going to be breaking down X-Men 97, Episode 7, another fantastic episode. There will obviously be spoilers, but as long as you're okay with that, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget we're running an April contest all month long. Be a subscriber, leave a comment, win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. And we have the membership option if you want to help me with my goal of doing this full time one day. But honestly, no matter how you support the channel, it's all greatly appreciated. Leaving comments, liking videos, and subscribing, those things go a long way too. So thank you so much. So we start with Rogue narrating previously on, since she is a central character throughout this episode. And then let's talk about all the different title cards. So Magneto is not shown in the opening title cards because we thought he was dead. But obviously, by the end of the episode, we know that he's not. Somehow he survives this, because that is clearly him. And he has even the torn outfit that he was wearing. So, it's not like a clone or some trick. I mean, that is Magneto. So somehow Bastion got him out of there. I would love to know your theories on that. I mean, maybe he was just badly injured but wasn't killed, and Leech sapped his powers to the point where the Tri-Sentinel thought he was dead. I don't know. I'm really curious. But speaking of Leech, does that mean Leech maybe isn't dead? I mean, we know Callisto is dead, that's for sure. But sometimes you have pictures at your funeral of you with other people, other friends that are still obviously alive. So maybe there's a chance Leech is still alive too. Very curious to see where this all goes. Gambit, on the other hand, is very much dead. Obviously, we will see his funeral in this episode. So, man. It'd be very interesting to see if he comes back and how he comes back. Perhaps what we saw with Trask is a hint. But we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, Jean's hair. Got to talk about Jean's hair because they're messing with us this episode. So as I've mentioned in the past, first couple episodes, she had her hair down. Then her hair was up in a ponytail, and that's because Jean on the left likes a ponytail, and Madeline prefers having her hair down. But in this episode, Jean had her hair down. So considering how much they've been focusing on the way she wears her hair, is this possible that they're trying to say Jean is kind of adopting some of the characteristics of Madeline, like as their lives are almost fused together in her head? I mean, I don't think this is Madeline, obviously. I think Madeline is very likely dead. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, very interesting that Jean has her hair down. Let me know your thoughts on that. Then, of course, we have Nightcrawler, who I really hope has joined the team. That would be awesome. Storm is still absent. Thought she might have shown up in this episode, but surely we'll get her by next episode. Bishop is obviously still lost in time, or not lost, but gone ahead in time. But with Cable coming back, we'll be getting Bishop soon as well. Interesting question, right? I hope so. And, of course, Professor X is still absent, but he should be back soon as well. So there's going to be a whole bunch of title cards soon. That's awesome. So now to the scenes. So they give us the same scene of Bishop fighting Apocalypse, and that's because he's back in this episode, right? We get him back, and notice the Bright Eye is the title of the episode, Bright Eyes. And this scene is taken from Beyond Good and Evil. I'm still trying to decide if I think Apocalypse is going to show up or not. We have enough villains. We don't really need Apocalypse. So it could just be that they're showing us this because Cable's in it. We'll have to see. Obviously, the Bright Eyes nickname comes from an earlier episode where Storm clocks him but calls him Bright Eyes right before punching him out. And that was from Time Fugitives. So that's where we get the title of the episode. Then we get this scene with Nimrod. And I think now the reason we see Nimrod and then him inside Master Mold is this hint that Bastion is a combination of the two of them. Somehow Bastion has he's the next evolution of both Master Mold and Nimrod together. So very interesting, but I think that's what they're hinting at here. And then, of course, we see the scene where Nimrod's getting blown apart by Bishop and a future version of Wolverine and Storm, where they're lovers. And it's a really good two-parter, one man's worth, if you want to check it out. I don't think we're going to see them necessarily, but I do think this is a reminder that this was Nimrod's final appearance in the original series, so the last we've seen him. Notice he's wearing the wristband that lets him travel through time. Bishop blows it off, screaming, "Your history." Great one-liner. And then blows him up. Now, that's not an issue because Nimrod can reform himself, but seemingly he's going to be lost in time, and that's where maybe Bastion gets a hold of him. It'll be interesting to see if they refer to this episode and how he got out of this situation. So we see the scene with Sinister, because obviously Sinister is returning in this episode. Sunspot has a big role, so that's why we see him. And then we get these Phoenix scenes again. Now, Jean does mention being the Phoenix, so maybe that's why they keep showing all of these. But the bottom line is that it has been in so many episodes that you do have to wonder, is this for a greater purpose, or is it just because they keep mentioning the Phoenix? I think something's going on, and we really need to keep these scenes in mind for maybe a reveal coming down the line. And then finally, we get this scene with Rogue and Gambit kissing, and of course, that's because the loss of Gambit has really driven her over the edge, and the loss of Magneto too. So finally, speaking of Gambit, we move into the episode itself, and Gambit is having his funeral with, of course, Nightcrawler presiding, and he's the most religious of the X-Men. Makes sense that he would be presiding the funeral. And then I don't know what's going on here, Beast. You got to watch where your umbrella goes. I mean, I know they don't want us to be smiling during a funeral, because this really was a very sad scene, very somber scene. But still, come on. I mean, poor Morph. Anyway, that aside, very good funeral. And I thought that Nightcrawler's words were very on point. And then I like the fact that he talks about Gambit's life of Bayou crime into which he was born, because we do get appearances from the Assassins Guild and the Thieves Guild. That's who all these different characters are here, with particularly Belladonna there on the left. If you've never seen the episode, check out Externally Yours, because this gives kind of the backstory of Gambit and why he kind of feels like he's led a life of sin, as Nightcrawler mentions, but has really, in reality, lifted everyone up. So it'd be interesting to see if Belladonna appears again. Boy, what a lover's... It's no longer a lover's triangle, it'll be a lover's square, I guess, because it's 4 points. But you'd have Belladonna, Magneto, Gambit, and Rogue. That'd be crazy. But I don't think so. I don't think we'll get Belladonna back after this episode. But it was cool to see all of the Thieves and Assassins Guild. So then we get Cyclops talking to President Kelly. And we know it's been at least a week since last episode, because it's gone a whole week since they found any new survivors. So presuming they found survivors for the first couple days. So we're maybe a couple weeks out from last episode. And what is up with Val? I think it's interesting they dropped this comment of, what about Val Cooper? Rescue still haven't found her. Now, Cyclops is saying that to try to convince President Kelly to send more help, because he doesn't want to send any more help to Genosha. But we'll talk more about Val. Something is going on with her, I really think. But yeah, Kelly's like, hey, I'm sorry. I got a lot of scared voters, or he doesn't want to rather scare voters by helping your kind. Ouch. But that's enough for Cyclops. He just shuts it down, but does confirm that Kelly is Mr. President. Of course, Kelly was the president throughout most of the original series, so clearly he got reelected in 96 and now continues to be the president. So here we see them searching for survivors in Genosha. Poor Blob. I mean, I don't know that there is an outfit he could wear that would be flattering to his physique. He is heavy set, we know that, but I don't think there could be anything less flattering than that outfit, and he always wears it. Is it like the only thing in his closet? Does he have a closet full of that outfit? Poor Blob. But anyway, over on the right, you see Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man, a couple of him helping. That's kind of cool. And then we see Amelia Vaught. So she is the lady with the red hair there that turns into mist. That's pretty cool. And then reforms. In fact, she can turn not just herself, but whatever she's holding. So that's kind of cool. But she's mentioned by name as Amelia, so we know it's her. She was in the original series, has a long history with Professor X, which could get interesting if she stays around. And she eventually became a little bit of or put on, or at least her superhero, supervillain, whatever you want to say, costume when she was on Asteroid M. So yeah, you can check her out in the original series. She is a very interesting character, but this may be a one and done, just a nod to her past character, or maybe they're going to do more with her when Professor X returns. Then we get Brainchild, Amphibious, and Lupo. I do not like any of these guys, especially Brainchild. Every time he appeared, I just wanted to smack him. But hey, he's helping. So I'm gonna put aside my bias towards him. They're all helping for now, but keep an eye on that dude, man. I don't trust him. I don't trust him. Speaking of not trusting, there's Mimic, and Mimic, of course, could mimic the powers of the original X-Men, as you could see, and it was half the time at least was a bad guy. But just like Magneto, loves the letter M. He is just proudly displaying that M. I'm not sure what the fixation is for him and Magneto, but guys, it's just a letter. It's just a letter. You don't need to wear it that often. Then we get Strong Guy telling Sunspot, you better start bulking up, kid. You know, war's coming. And of course, Strong Guy is one of the X Factor members that Forge was a part of. So we've seen several X Factor members now. In fact, Quicksilver, Morph is going to turn into Quicksilver later in this episode. So hope we get to see all of them. Great team. In fact, hopefully we see them all teaming up together again. That'd be sweet. Then Jubilee has a heart-to-heart with Sunspot, basically saying, look, you got to talk to your parents. You don't want them finding out about who you were on the 5 o'clock news. Which is funny that she says that, because I think the world should know already, because he was on the 5 o'clock news, because Trish Tilby, a couple episodes ago, showed Sunspot on the news. You can see this is the camera, the footage that she was showing. So interestingly, we do find out that Sunspot's parents already knew, but still, I just thought this line was funny considering they were already on the 5 o'clock news. But I'm going to jump then to the scene where he does talk to his parents to kind of put these back to back. And sure enough, he goes to say, I am a mutant. And his mother, what a great response, says, baby, 4 of our homes have caught fire mysteriously. Basically, we know you're a mutant. Your father and I agreed it was your secret to tell. That's really cool. And a mother knows, Roberto. A mother knows. So obviously, this is an allegory for coming out to your parents, LGBT community, as the X-Men always has been. So yeah, really, really well done scene. You're loving the mother at this point. Until then, oops. Then she says, now the trick will be making sure we keep this all private. They can't know we have a mutant in the family. Well, I mean, it's nice to be accepted by your mom. That's the most important thing, and your dad. But still, wow. In fact, speaking of his dad, in the comics at least, his dad is not a very great guy. Emmanuel DaCosta, you see him talking here to Sebastian Shaw. Now, we're not going to see this particular scene because Shaw got killed. We saw him get killed at Genosha. But I will be interested to see how Mr. DaCosta handles this whole situation. Mrs. DaCosta is handling it pretty well. Well, not very well because she wants him to hide it, but I'm just saying, like, she's not yelling at him or arguing or forcing him. I think his dad, if he shows up, is going to be a real problem. So that's going to be interesting to see. So back to Genosha, where they're searching for the survivors. Trish Tilby shows up. Remember, I just mentioned she was the one that showed Sunspot on the news. So I think she doesn't mind exploiting this situation for her career. But nonetheless, she sends the cameraman away and says, walk with me. But then she tells Hank, normal people won't accept mutants if they feel threatened. Which is true, but isn't what Beast wanted to hear, because he says, well, perhaps the professor's vision for the future was too nearsighted, and begging for your tolerance was our first mistake. That's a big deal. That word tolerance, right? Because we know the last 3 episodes are called Tolerance is Extinction. So the fact that they're mentioning tolerance being a mistake, oh boy. And we're going to see, obviously, how Rogue is acting this entire episode. You have to wonder if we're talking about a mutant-human war. So, wow. Interesting. We'll talk more about that as well. All right, so Jean is now searching for survivors. She's picking up the psychic echoes. She says this much death can leave a stain, can stain a place. And she sees the rats. So this was the final piece of that vision from way back when Madeline had. And we didn't know what on earth the rats were all about. So did this solve it? Or is there still more to the rats to come? I don't know what to think. We'll have to see. Because theoretically, if Cassandra Nova was going to appear, which I just don't think is going to happen anymore, they've got enough villains. They don't need Cassandra. But she was down in the sewers. Her body was down in the sewers. So, I don't know. Very interesting. But I think this is it. I think they've solved the riddle of the rats. All right, but she does find a survivor, and that is Emma Frost. And as Beast notes, though, diamond transmutation has never been one of Emma's abilities, and perhaps a dormant mutation triggered by duress. So this is something that the comics quite often did, which was a secondary mutation. So you have your first mutation, and then under duress, a secondary one happens. I kind of hope they don't do this with a bunch of characters. I mean, they already have powers. They don't need secondary powers in many cases. But it is true that Emma Frost has consistently shown both her psychic abilities, but also her ability to turn to her diamond hard form, as we saw in the First Class movie. So it works with her, but I'll be interested to see if this happens with anybody else. All right, so then Trask has the nerve to reach out to the X-Men and say, hey, now I want to help. Really, dude? Now you want to help? But he says, come to the UN Peace Legion in Madripoor, and he'll have all kinds of information for them. So before we go to Madripoor, though, we need to pick up on Rogue's story, because I've kind of combined all of her story throughout the episode chronologically together, because I just like covering it all in one piece. And boy, does she look unhappy. So I believe she is attacking the Gamma base because they say this is a top secret United States facility, and it's in the desert, and that's pretty similar to the Gamma base that we saw in the Hulk animated series. Now, we know that the X-Men and Spider-Man animated series are in the same universe because they crossed over all the time. That is for certain. It's unclear whether things like Hulk and Iron Man, etc., whether those are in the same connected universe or not. I've heard many different opinions. But maybe this is a solid connection, because not only do we see the base, but obviously inside the base we see Ross. And he talks about the fact that we're standing in the same place built to hold the Hulk. So let me know your opinion. Is this canonizing once and for all that the Incredible Hulk series, animated series, takes place in the same universe? Or is it just that there's a Hulk in the X-Men universe and, they're not separate? Or I'm sorry, they are separate, in other words. So let me know. Is it separate or is it not? I'll be investigating this more as I try to do the timelines for all these different series. But yeah, Rogue is not happy. Look at that look on her face. I would not want to be the one about ready to get hit by somebody with that face. She is so mad. So she's smashing these little walking tanks, if you will, crushing them left and right. This kick, man, oh my word, that's like right out of Capcom, right? That move. But incredible, and just crushes another one here. And then this look in her eye. Wow. That's just scary. That's just scary. I totally understand why she's that upset, but oh man, she is not of right mind right now. So she gets a hold of Ross, and Ross is lucky he's even alive after this, but she wants to know where are Henry Gyrich and Bolivar Trask. So Ross gives her the information she needs to continue the hunt for Gyrich, which takes her here to this snow-fallen ground. And there is a nice Easter egg about Rogue here. Notice the AVN A10 over on the right there. That is definitely a reference to Avengers Annual 10, which is Rogue's first appearance, and a really good issue too. Oh my word, that's incredible. If you've never read it, get a hold of it. It's really good. And then we get an appearance by Captain America. Now, it's worth pointing out this shield is a little different looking from the one that we saw in when Captain America appeared in the X-Men series. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But all I know is Rogue looks good holding it. So, hey, if she decides she wants to use a shield, go for it. But then there he is. We get him, right? Captain America. And he says, "Stand down, Rogue." Now, he is voiced by Josh Keaton, who, of course, voiced Spectacular Spider-Man, which is cool. But more importantly, we have seen Captain America in the X-Men series. It was in Old Soldiers, or one of the best 5th season episodes. You can check it out if you've never seen it. And it is back in the 40s. So this is not present day. It's because Wolverine, of course, has been around for a long time. So at least in the X-Men series, they never showed Captain America in the present. However, Captain America was in present day in the Spider-Man series, and we know those two are connected, so great, there is a Captain America, but he ended, his final appearance was in the Secret Wars Chapter 3, and he was left in a time vortex. So that's why I'm really wondering, is this the same Captain America? Or could it actually be U.S. Agent? Maybe that's why he doesn't look exactly the same, because they never refer to him as Steve Rogers in this episode. So I'm just throwing that out. Let me know your thoughts. Is this Steve Rogers, or is it maybe U.S. Agent? All right, so it does look like they might be partnering up, though. There's Rogue still with the shield. She looks really good with that shield. Anyway, she says, he says, like you, I'm hoping to use Gyrich to get our hands on Bolivar Trask. So, okay, maybe they're going to work together, right? She sees this OZT and is wondering what that is. My guess is that is Operation Zero Tolerance, which is, oh man, if you've never read those comics, those are well worth reading. That's where we see Bastion unleashing his full power, and man, he is like insanely powerful. So yeah, definitely that's where we're going with this, with Operation Zero Tolerance here. So then notice Cap says, once I get the thumbs up, I'll lead my team to Mexico to apprehend Gyrich. He doesn't actually say I'll lead the Avengers. So that's another reason I got to wonder, is this Steve Rogers, or maybe it's U.S. Agent with a completely different team? So I know people have been theorizing this could lead to an Avengers and X-Men battle, which would be cool. I'm all for that. Maybe in second season. I don't see it happening in the rest of this season. But it also might be a totally different team. So let me know your thoughts on that. But Captain America says, I got to do this by the book. And that's what Rogue does not want to hear. She's like, well, if your hands are tied, you won't be needing this, and chucks his shield way into the mountains. That is hilarious. Going to take him a while to recover that, I suspect. But Rogue has what she needs to go and find Gyrich. So she does, and Gyrich taunts her by saying, well, tell Summers his wife's psychic probes won't work this time, and Rogue's like, oh, we're not doing that this time, and starts to just absorb his memories, obviously. And boy, does she regret it. Maybe Gyrich actually was going to be similar, as we will see with Trask, was kind of a sleeper agent and was going to turn into a human sentinel, and that's why this is happening. But notice, she sees something, perhaps Bastion? I think so. Let me know your thoughts if you don't think that's Bastion. And then clearly here she sees Nimrod. So it's another hint that Bastion has, taken the best of both worlds, the best of Master Mold, the best of Nimrod, and is now this, nearly invincible sentinel. All right, so something happens, because we definitely skip a bit here. Rogue is now outside, being found by Nightcrawler, and Gyrich is just gone. And we'll see where he is in a minute. Bastion's got a hold of him. He's in a hospital, and Bastion's got him. But so what happened? Did we miss something here that we need to know about? Has Bastion planted the same thing that he planted on Trask on Rogue? Lots to consider here. But anyway, so Rogue wakes up to see Nightcrawler, and he says, indeed it is I, sister. Love it. Love it that they're finally saying that to each other, because then she says, you sure pulled the short straw in the adopted sister department, didn't you? So I was worried when they first saw each other, neither one mentioned the brother-sister thing, but now they have confirmed this crazy family tree. So Mystique and Sabretooth, of all people, had a Graydon Creed, who led Friends of Humanity, and then Mystique also had Nightcrawler, and then in her human form, she adopted Rogue, who now is the adopted sister of Nightcrawler. So, wow, craziness, but really, really glad they didn't decide to walk away from this. I was just so worried. But yeah, very cool. All right, so they are in Mexico, and it turns out to be during Dia de los Muertos, which gives us a nice timeline hint as to when this is happening. And of course, people are honoring the dead. Really, really cool scene. And that's what really lets Rogue deal with the emotions she's been going through. She's processing Remy's dead and just breaks down in Nightcrawler's arms. Beautiful scene, just cries her heart out. And then the rest of the X-Men show up there to comfort her, which is great. Well, except for Wolverine, who's there just to pose. That's a really impressive pose. No, I'm kidding. They're all there to help her through this. Just a beautiful scene. Been fantastic acting by all of the voice actors, especially Rogue. All right, so now we do see what happens to Gyrich. So he was taken off to a hospital somewhere, but Bastion has now gotten a hold of him, and he turns on this music, the Purple People Eater. That is a very appropriate song. He brings it up again, turns it on again later in the episode. I think there is a lot of meaning behind that, and we'll discuss that a little bit more in a moment, that he literally is a Purple People Eater. But so Gyrich is all happy, right? Just as you dreamt it. He's all like, Bastion's going to high-five him, right? Oh no, Bastion says, well, you nearly ruined my surprise, and so yeah, game over. We're done. R.I.P. Gyrich. So, oops, so much for him. Just as well, man. Gyrich's the worst. Don't want to see anybody have to go that way, but still, Gyrich, you reap what you sow. All right, so then off to Madripoor, which is interesting. I had forgotten. This, I think, is the final shot that we have not yet seen until now from that original trailer. And I had asked people, where do you think this is? I did get a couple people guess Madripoor, so you win. Anybody that guessed it was going to be Madripoor. Beautiful city. We see a lot of Easter eggs for companies from America. We see VistaCore, of course, where Ant-Man worked, on the right there. On the left, we see Roxxon, and on the right, we see Hammer. We see Stark Industries there in the middle, and we see DaCosta, Roberto's father's company, there on the left. So very cool. All right, then we get this awesome elevator ride. They figure out where Trask is. He's on the top floor, and this so much reminds me of the hilarious elevator ride in No Way Home. Epic, just epic. So yes, they do then reach the floor where Trask is located. Beast notes that, since when did the United Nations house classified cybernetics facilities? And the technology in these cases is light years ahead of ours today. Just one more hint that this is from knowledge from the future that they have brought back to the past to cause problems. And then in comes Trask, who, sure enough, he confirms it. He's building a new type of Sentinel, worse than what we saw in Genosha. So Rogue wants to know, is there anything else you can tell us? He's like, nope, I have nothing else. She's like, well, then goodbye. and just drops him. Literally just drops him. And the look on her face, wow, zero remorse from Rogue. Now, Nightcrawler's like, wait, what have you done? What have you done? And Wolverine chimes right in with what we all wanted to do. So there seems to be a bit of a split between the X-Men, because also Morph is like, is this what we become? He's trying to figure out what's going on here. But I do think, remember that comment by Beast that said tolerance was our mistake. Are they realizing that maybe they need to be less tolerant of how they're treated by humanity? Scary. But Trask is not done yet. He comes back up, gives us an Exorcist head twist with bones cracking, gets his head turned around the right way, and the X-Men realize that Trask has mutated into some sort of human sentinel. Okay, so clearly this is Bastion's work, and so Bastion has turned him into like a sleeper agent, which I think maybe he had done with Gyrich. I don't know. Maybe that's what Rogue was seeing, or maybe Rogue just learned about it from Gyrich. But here's the key to that purple people eater song. Literally, Bastion, who wears purple, is eating people. I mean, metaphorically, right? Because he's putting this sleeper agent in and taking them over to become human sentinels. Wow, crazy. And this is just his first version of it, and yet Trask basically mops the floor with the X-Men. Prime Sentinel Protocol activated, and Jean, though, this is very important, even though he's now a human sentinel, Jean says, I can still sense his mind inside. So that makes me wonder, will some of the X-Men perhaps be turned into human sentinels? Could that be how they bring Gambit back? Could that be why Bastion has captured Magneto, which we'll see in just a minute? Yeah, lots of questions here, but that is a very interesting line that he's still there inside, right? But doesn't matter because he put down Rogue with one hit, says Cyclops. X-Men take him down. And notice Morph has now turned into Quicksilver there, as I mentioned earlier, and sure enough, uses Quicksilver's power to try to stop Trask. Of course, he just bats Morph away. But man, this is really, really making me wonder, can Morph really get the powers of whoever they assume? So, like, could Morph be Apocalypse? Could Morph be Magneto? Is it unlimited, or is it only certain types of powers? I really hope they explain this, because I love Morph doing this, but I don't want Morph to be able to turn into any mutant that they can think of and then, I don't know, be OP. Phoenix? Could Morph turn into Phoenix? I don't know. Anyway, very interesting question. But Trask mops the floor at them and says, how does it feel to be abandoned by the future? And he's just about to take care of Cyclops when in comes a grenade. And boom, that takes out Trask. And we finally get our Cable appearance. Bright Eyes has appeared, explaining that electromagnetic cluster grenades are the quickest way to take these suckers down. So this is interesting. Jean then reads his mind and is surprised by what she sees. Says no and can't believe it. I'm going to talk more about that in just a second. But so Cable basically says, get out of my brain. You're not her, referring to Madeline. So he realizes, who's who. So that's kind of cool. But then Cyclops realizes, oh my gosh, it's Nathan. And Cable's like, let's skip the reunion, Dad. But we got to talk about this. So Jean seems surprised. Well, if we go all the way back to Season 2, Episode 8, and I've talked about this in some earlier breakdowns, there were certainly hints about who Cable's parents were going to be. Because the computer voice says, name Cyclops, Field Commander of the X-Men. And Cable, oh, by the way, this is from Time Fugitives, Part 2. And Cable says, oh, I know about him, and Jean Grey. Notice he doesn't say Madeline, he says Jean Grey, but there's no way they were going to tip their hand way back then about Madeline. Even though you're going to see they had plans on this way back then. We'll get to that in a second. But he knows about both Scott and Jean Grey, and then says, continue, computer. Then Jean scans his mind, and notice she sees, she's got the ponytail, and she sees a long-haired Jean and Cyclops. So, yeah, that means they were literally planning for someone besides Jean to be Cable's mom way back then. Now, you may say, no, there's no way that's true. But as I mentioned in an earlier video, the OG himself, Larry Houston, one of the directors of the original series, said, nope, that was intentional. Did you see that? That was our plan. Wild, right? So then after the brain scan, Jean says, I touched Cable's mind. Cyclops says, well, who is he? What's he really up to? And Jean says he's more important for the future, our future, than you could ever imagine. So the fact that now she was surprised in this episode when she read his mind, I'm guessing she didn't get the full picture. She knew he was important, but not why, I guess, right? I'm trying to put this all together. I don't think they retconned this episode. Instead, they made it come true. Finally. I mean, years ago, they came up with this plot that they're now paying off. But it surprised me a little bit that Jean was so surprised. Let me know your thoughts on that, if that surprised you. But anyway, they learned the bad news from Cable that Sinister is working for someone else, someone worse. And if you X-Men don't stop him, there won't be much of a future worth living in. So yeah, very, very ominous. And we do see that Sinister is not the main part of the problem. Sinister is working with someone else, and that is Bastion, who we've been pretty much guessing all along with some of the hints they've been dropping. But I love this. Bastion says, oh, Sinister, you and the villains of old have been failing since '92 to squash these pests. So referring back to the fact that, yeah, the earlier seasons started in 1992. And again, I'm working on a timeline for the original series. I hope to have it out soon. I would have had it out by now if they hadn't dropped that Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. It was awesome. But man, that messed me up for a couple days. But it's coming, I promise. The timeline is coming soon. But I love that Bastion's like, what you would do is my roadmap for what not to do. So Sinister doesn't like hearing that and says, well, you were one of those villains once. Interesting. So that's another hint that Bastion literally was one of them. I'm guessing Nimrod. And then he also probably integrated some of the information from Master Mold. It seems hard to believe that he was directly Master Mold. That doesn't make sense to me. But Nimrod, yeah, I could see Nimrod and Master Mold combining to become Bastion. Very cool. And then notice Bastion is literally hooked up to the computer. He's pulling an Ultron and just pulling all the information. So, man, this dude is going to be tough to beat. But yeah, he may have been one of those villains once, but as he said, yet, unlike the rest of you, I evolved. So, yeah, meaning, let's say he was Nimrod, he's now evolved into Bastion. Then he also says, my techs repaired a damaged alien satellite. And remember I said during the Mojo breakdown, when Mojo killed the IT department and then wished that Mojo had them back? See, you got to respect your tech team. Always respect the IT guys and gals. They're so important. But anyway, my techs repaired a damaged alien satellite the X-Men used to chat with their allies, the Shi'ar. And now he learns what we learned, of course, which was Xavier was going to become the new emperor, but instead is now returning home. Then this statement is fascinating. He says, our merry band of muties have been selling the world a very big lie. Well, that is implying that the X-Men knew he wasn't dead. But they sure have acted like it, at least most of them have. So what's your thought on that? Do you think all of the X-Men know that he wasn't dead? Because they were literally having private discussions, not in front of a camera, not in front of the UN, but private discussions about how hard it's been that Xavier's gone. But maybe they've known this whole time. Very interesting. So when Xavier comes back, I want to see how everybody reacts to that. But speaking of coming back, turns out Magneto is not dead. Because instead, Bastion has captured him. Honestly, guys, I have no idea how he rescued Magneto. I am really interested in any theories that folks may have. Let me know. But notice he is wearing one of those restrictive collars, so he can't use his powers. And then Bastion is just waving that metal razor, metal in front of Magneto, taunting him with it as he's shaving him. He says all you can basically do is simply listen and obey. You were born for this. So I think he is going to use Magneto to further his mission, to further this zero tolerance initiative. So, man, wow. We have got some major, major episodes coming up. Cannot wait. But I want to talk just a little bit more about Bastion. Well, Bastion, sorry. Notice Forge, remember we talked about this before, but let's kind of recap some of these hints we had. Forge on his wall had this picture, which we expand it, shows us Dr. Adler from the Cure episode, and of course it turned out Adler was actually Mystique, so we're going to get to that in a second. I really think Mystique is coming back. But in addition to working with Adler, he was working with Bastion, because that's who we can see, covered up by another photo, but clearly that's Bastion. I mentioned in an earlier episode also that Magneto seemed to look up and see Bastion walking around, because that sure looks, again, like Bastion, meaning he was at the party, flaunting himself, basically, like, hey, I know what's coming, ain't gonna hurt me. But I have heard some theories that Bastion is even in this scene from episode 2, that if we look here, we see Val on the left and Bastion on the right. That is crazy. If Bastion was literally sitting in top secret government meetings, I mean, if you kind of look at what he's wearing, it doesn't look like a regular jacket. I mean, it's real hard to make out because it's dark, but you can kind of see different colors and patterns on his shirt. Or whatever, his suit, I should say. That is interesting, because if Bastion was working with Val, then maybe that explains what's going on here. Because remember, in the Genosha episode, Val looks up and the Tri-Sentinel pauses. It seems to look at her and think for a second. So there's a lot of reasons it could have done that. Then, of course, Magneto jumps in, by the way, and knocks it away before we can tell what it was going to do. But it could be that it realized, oh, it's a human, I don't need to kill her. Or it could be, if Bastion had something to do with the Tri-Sentinel, which obviously he did, that he programmed it to not attack Mystique, because Mystique is working with him. So if you go back to the earlier quote where they have not found Val's body, that's going to be crazy if Val has been Mystique this whole time. I really think so. I think Mystique is working with Bastion and Sinister, because she was pretending to be Adler, remember? And Adler created those necklaces, those neck braces that take away your powers. All right, let me know your thoughts on that, but I am going to be stunned now if Val is not Mystique. So there we go. I mean, one more week, right? And then we get to these final 3 parts. Going to be epic. Let me know your thoughts on the episode. If you have any additional theories I didn't cover, I love to read all the comments. Also, remember, April contest, be a subscriber, leave a comment, win a book or a steel book. And of course, we have the membership option if you're interested in that. And lastly, we have a Discord. I love to talk about it. Over 1,300 members across the globe, 24/7 conversations. We do watches. We have MMORPG. We have Star Wars retrospectives that we're going through. We have a thumbnail contest, because you know my thumbnails ain't that great. You can take part in that if you want. And we have other media forums. We normally talk mostly about Star Wars, DC, and Marvel. But hey, anything you want to talk about, we can create it and you'll be part of it. I will leave a pinned comment so you can join the Discord if you'd like. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.